Hi, I'm Zena,
And I am Chris.
and we are partners to
To
Powerhouse.
Powerhouse.
And we are so excited to be here this evening with you
Yes.
to discuss navigating the challenges of entrepreneurship. So, if any of you are in business or one of you owns a business and you're trying to navigate marriage with the business, this episode is absolutely something you should hear. And if you are listening, please go ahead and share this out. We'd love to get the message out because there's a lot of couples that really have challenges happening. And we've got a great special guest coming on with us today. And it is John and Jessica McEnroe. And they're going to come and we're going to have a great discussion. So, but before we get them on here, I am going to play our intro video and then we will get started. So here we go. All right, so we are back in action. So here we go. I'm going to bring John on right now. John, hello. How are you this evening?
Hi, John.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We are doing great here.
We got
Great.
How's
John and Jessica McEnroe.
Yeah, John and Jess McEnroe. Yes, we are so excited to have you here. And Jess will be on her way. It sounds like she is. This is just kind of the life of the entrepreneurs, right? Sometimes we are running around and then trying to get to the same place, and sometimes it's at the same time, and sometimes it's a little different.
Yes. Especially the way
Tell
we
us,
are
John.
with our animals and stuff like that.
Yeah, tell us about your animals.
Yeah, we'd like to hear about it.
Yeah. So my daughter shows pigs, and when you're showing pigs or whatever, believe it or not, they're really sensitive. You know what I'm saying? Like every time you go to a pig show, when you bring your pigs back, you automatically got to go through all this little different treatments and everything. You got to treat them with all these different medicines and stuff like that, because when they're out there and they're around all the other pigs, they have a tendency to, you know, maybe come home with a sickness, and then you don't want that sickness to get to the other pigs. So that's kind of what they're doing today. They've been gone for over a week, and they got back, I guess, Sunday evening real late, and they went ahead and yesterday and today they've been grooming the pigs and getting the pigs ready to, you know, get back into the stalls with the rest of the pigs.
Wow, that's
Kind
a
of
lot
like
of
a
work.
detox.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, are these strictly show pigs? Are these strictly show pigs, or will these pigs also be food for you at some point?
Like bacon and ham and stuff.
Yes, they do turn into food. It depends. So if she does real good in showing and the pig goes to sell, then it gets sold. And then sometimes the boy pigs, they automatically, whether they get sold or not, they go off to harvest, but it's like a part of the system, I guess. You know what I'm saying? You get whatever they're paying per pound, my daughter gets a check for that. But if the pig don't sell or he don't get on one of those trailers going to be bacon for somebody else, yes, they become bacon right here.
Well, sounds like it's a plus no matter what, a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's wasting no resources there, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So
Yes,
John,
yes.
wasting no resources. Yes. And well, actually, and we did raise a pig once, and the meat is incredible. It is so tasty, and it's amazing too. The first time we cooked ham from our pig, it was brown, which is psychologically weird because you're so used to purchasing from the store and it's pink. And I didn't realize until we did that they put dye in the meat, which is like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually raised three pigs. So,
Oh, it was 3 pigs?
yeah.
Well, obviously, I wasn't the one doing the work, so.
There's definitely a big difference in what we eat compared to what comes out of the store. Basically, the only thing that we buy at the store is chicken. Everything else is, if it has to do with beef or pork or anything like that, it's right out of our freezer, out of a animal that we raised, and now we eat them.
Nice.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, John, tell us about your business that you have going out there in East Texas. Tell us what part of Texas in East Texas you're in.
So I live in Arp, Texas. It's a little population 901, but to let everybody know, it's right in between Tyler and Longview, Texas. So that's kind of what I use to tell people where we are. We're just a little town here, about 901 people, and we're kind of in between two cities to where it's 20-minute drive either way. So, but I own Be Happy Building LLC. I build barnuminiums and steel buildings for a living. Been doing this for a while. I started back in the late 80s, early 90s, building pole barns. And 96, I built my first steel building. After that, it just like by 2000, I went steel all the way. And I don't know, I've worked my way up to where I'm at. It took 20 years to get to where I'm halfway stable, I guess you could say.
And that's, and that's interesting that you say that, because building a business is not an easy feat whatsoever.
But when you're building a family at the same time, especially.
Yes.
So
you make a lot of sacrifices.
Yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about the sacrifices that you've had to make along the way. That stand out to you.
My biggest thing is my children. I got a 34-year-old that I got custody of when he was 9 years old. I got with Jess a year later. She basically raised him. You know what I'm saying? She went to all of his football games, all that stuff. And as we were going, our two children that we have together, they're playing children. It was one of those things like, hey, I've been through some stuff. You done been through some stuff. Like, let's just make sure we plan everything in our life. We had our first son, Colton. He's 18 now. Our daughter's 12. But when we had Colton, we kind of eased up a little bit to where I tried making more, baseball games and stuff like that, but still work would always pull me away somehow. And then the same thing with Caressa. She's 12. When we went to the thing in Florida to the couples retreat, I think that was one of the best things that happened to me in a really, really long time, because when I got home, I got to thinking like, you know what? I need to figure out how to make time to go with y'all to these things, to try to spend some time with Caressa before she's too old. You know what I'm saying? Now that Colton's 18 years old, like, hey, Dad, I'll see you later. That's what you hear from him. And I just figured now I got a few more years with Caressa that I'm actually going to try to spend way more time. And if I can go to these pig shows and show my support that way. But the sacrifices that play most in my mind is with my children.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that I think about children, our children we raised, not in every sense, but in one sense, yeah, is that they're an investment into our future, largely, and they're an investment into so many other people's future, so it is an investment that we need to spend the time in. So you're right on with what you said. And I would imagine that most parents, when their children are getting close to adulthood, look back and wish they would have maybe spent more time with them on certain things. I think that's probably a fairly normal dynamic.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of yeah, for sure. Are you hearing us okay on your end?
Yeah, y'all kind of get you're cutting in and out a little bit, but can y'all hear me good on your end?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine. So let's see if we can help the sound just a little bit. Let me see if we can do something on our end. Don't know. Sometimes the internet, you just never know how it ends up going. But hey, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
Hey.
I tried.
How are you?
Oh, I'm good, and y'all?
Doing well, thank you.
Doing good, thanks.
We were just talking about some of the sacrifices having to be made when running a business and building a business. So, and John was just talking about how, really not being able to spend time with the kids as much was definitely, something that was sacrificed. What would you say, Jessica, to, on your end, that the sacrifice that you felt as building a business with your husband?
Sacrifices, there's a good chunk of them sometimes.
Tell them.
What? So it's time with each other. I mean, like sometimes it's hard to delegate in between the personal and the business. A lot of times your business life is at home along with your personal life. So like finding that separate timing, to spend with each other.
Most definitely.
Right.
Most definitely. And I find that you have to be very intentional. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's a really real thing. Because when you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a business, you don't have the clock in and clock out time. You don't have that definite, I'm going to be at work at 8, I'm going to be home by 5, right? Some days are different. Some days you don't make it home necessarily at dinner time. Sometimes dinner's late. Sometimes, things happen. And I think we had to find that we had to be very intentional about scheduling date nights, especially when the kids were in the house. We're a little different. Our kids are grown. We're almost empty nesters here. But when the kids were little and they're demanding too, right? They need your attention when you get home, or when,
Yeah.
they're full of energy, like all day long from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. So, and we found like, wow, those years were very challenging trying to have us time, which I think is why many couples end up getting divorced when the kids get grown, because one of the difficulties is that when you don't make that intention to get to know each other and you stay so busy in your life that 20 years goes by, 18, 20 years goes by, or 25, whatever it is, if you didn't spend that time with each other, you're now looking at a stranger, and the kids aren't there to distract everything. And so some people don't know how to navigate through that. So John had just mentioned that going to the retreat in Florida. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's funny you say that, because I kind of feel like a few years ago, we were kind of like at that point, to where like, we're looking at each other and we're like, hey, who are you? You know what I'm saying? And we actually we kind of started over again, I guess you could say. We said, hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's figure out how to spend more time together and stuff like that. I feel like since 2020, a lot of things have changed. And who would have known, something had to happen in the world for us to be stuck with each other for a period of time to figure out, hey, we really don't know each other very well anymore, do we?
I like how you brought out something that was really good out of what had a lot of really bad things, with it. That was great.
And I really like that you survived 2020, because there were a lot of marriages that actually did not survive 2020 for the very reason that you just said. So I really appreciate you guys being really open and honest about this, because that's been a real issue, that people suddenly were with each other a lot more than they'd ever been, right?
Yeah.
Who are you looking at? Oh.
And there was no getting away. There was no girls' trip, that you could have. So what did you do? So when you realized that, what did you guys do to get through that?
So I would say what we did is we actually said, hey, You know what I'm saying? Let's spend more time. Let's start trying to make time for different things. You know what I'm saying? And try to, at that time is when we decided too that we need to do something different with the business, because before 2020, like in 2020, exactly when all the COVID and all that stuff happened, like I was actually physically working every day, you know, and I was the type that I'm up, I'm out at the crack of dawn. I'm not coming home till dark, and I'm probably doing that. You know, I'll go 21 days straight before I'll say, okay, I'll take a day off, you know. But in 2020 is when we decided to like, hey, let's start finding people. Let's get you out of the work site, get you into managing the company. You know what I'm saying? And at that time, I went to all my guys and I said, hey, look, y'all have been working with me for years. I would like for y'all to become your own business and work underneath me. And I will even finance you getting started. And when I did that and I kind of turned things over and let the reins loose a little bit, I was able to free up time. And once I figured out how to free up that time, that's when we started, as you say, be intentional about spending time with each other. You know, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that sounds good. You know, that reminds me, and I don't know if that's what this is what you guys were going through. I know with us, we had this going on a good while back. Well, I shouldn't say us. It was really me. But my view of being a provider for my family was really financial. It was working and providing, and it was kind of limited to that. I didn't think much past that, and that can be well, that's just an incomplete, you know, way to do it. You know, as a father and a husband, you know, the provision is not just financial. It's you know, it's emotional, right? It's intellectual. It's time spent with each other. It's relational, you know, and it's probably a few other things as well, spiritual, you know, too. Anyway, that's what it reminded me when you were telling me about that.
Well, and I think that's a really good point that you make there, Chris, because it seems like that is the struggle for a lot of entrepreneurial mindset people, and for men who've taken on that provider role, that you feel like it's okay to sacrifice my time with the family because I got to bring in the income to pay the bills. That's my role, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm really glad that you came to realize that being a provider meant so much more than just the money, because
Me too.
The reality is that most wives really would rather have their husbands and not have as much money than to have a lot of money and not have their husbands. And that's the reality, you know, that I think some couples haven't quite navigated through that or come to that conclusion. Would you find that to be the case here, or what would your take be on that situation?
Yeah,
I would say yes. And I would say, like, for us men, so it was kind of bred into us, I guess you would say, like, you know, the men before us, you know, that's what that's what we seen. You know what I'm saying? I didn't see nothing but which I had a stepdad, but I didn't see nothing but, you know, a dad that went out, he went to work every day, come home every night. Mother had, you know, his supper on the table, you know, all that good stuff. So that's what we seen. And naturally, you got to make a decision and say, you know what? This is just a cycle of life. So I want to change that cycle. I want to do something. You know what? Before 2020, I didn't do dishes. I do dishes now. I cook supper tonight. I might have burnt that chicken a little bit, but I cook supper tonight.
he does laundry too.
Hell, I do laundry too.
Wow.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
How's
Before
his cooking,
2020.
Jess? How's his cooking,
He
Jess?
gets creative. He gets
He's
very
good.
creative. He does good. He's doing a great
Yes,
job.
Good.
Good. Great.
Well, I'm glad. Well, and I think it's easier today too, John, because we got YouTube, so we can always look up recipes.
Right.
It's not
I'm
like
a spice
the old
rack.
days.
I'm a spice rack guy. I take all the spices and I just throw a whole bunch on there and cook it.
Well, That's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that because, it truly is a partnership, right? I mean, yes, we have roles and yes, we have gifts and talents. And sometimes one spouse is better at something than another, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that one spouse always is the one that has to do the cooking or do the dishes or clean the floors and that sort of thing. And that's a love language too. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages, for some people, the acts of service is a huge love language. Being able to, and that's for me.
I was going to say, yeah. This lady.
That's probably my top is acts of service. Is that when Chris does things for me, such as that, it really tells me that he truly loves me, that he cares, and he's thinking about me. And I'd rather get that than an expensive gift. Not to say that I don't ever like gifts, but that's not my number one. Can
I interject?
Yeah, of course.
On you. What she likes is acts of service from me, but the gifts she really likes to go and shop for herself. Because she really likes to shop.
Yes, I do like to shop. It's my gifting. You ain't shopping.
I can go shop for everybody else. Myself is just like.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, when you've got a house full of kids and you're already shopping for everybody else, going shopping for yourself is probably not the downtime that you're looking for. So speaking of that, Jessica, what kind of downtime or what kind of things that do you like that make you feel loved and appreciated?
Him stepping up and doing the washing the dishes and cooking the supper, and like he'll come in there and like he gets up early. I'm up at 6, say like I'll walk in and like he'll have my coffee already brewed up and everything for me. Like that right there is just like it is better than anything else. I mean,
that's awesome. Well, it is it is biblical for a man to make coffee. There's a whole book in the Bible, Hebrews.
Hebrews. So it kind of sounds like Jessica, acts of service is a big one for you for love language. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
How about you, John? What's your love language?
I don't know. Jess is very nurtured. I like the fact that she's real caring. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what the love language would be called, but I like that she's real caring and she takes the extra time to show me attention. You know what I'm saying? Especially like if I've had a bad day, she'll come give me the little hug. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be okay and all that good stuff. I would think that's one of the things that I long for during a bad day. And I'm one of those too, like during a bad day, to let things loose before I get home. I'll call her and I say, hey, man, it's not a good day, and get that little pump me up, she's, like Coach Burt, she's getting that prey drive back activated. You know what I'm saying? Come on, it's going to be okay. I know when I get home that night, I know that once we have our time together, I'm going to get that hug and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's great. So physical touch, I would say, is probably that. But yes, that's my husband's love language too. He likes physical touch as well.
Guess we're a lot alike, huh?
which is great. But it's definitely, not natural for me to have physical touch and affection in that way. And so I have to make an intentional effort to make sure, okay, my husband needs a little more of a hug. He needs to cuddle a little bit more. So I need to make sure I do that. But it's so interesting that God did not partner him with somebody who's naturally good at it. And I find it interesting that we have to work at each other, trying, making sure that the other person knows that they are loved and appreciated, that it really doesn't come natural like you think it should. At least I thought it should, growing up, watching movies, reading books. If you made your soulmate, it should be easy. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that thought that, but it didn't come out to be that way.
I don't know. Sometimes I'm one of those. I believe God puts two people together so they can bring out the best in each one of them.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah,
That is absolutely correct.
I agree.
Yeah, because we're totally different in a lot of ways. She's my yin to my yang, is what I always say, you know. But He put us together for a reason, you know.
And then I think what you could add on to that is that He puts us together also so that together we are better, probably much better than we ever will be alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that power of partnership. No, you actually hit it on the head, John, that we were designed to complement each other, to bring out the best in each other, to lift each other up so that we can go further, faster, whatever, endurance together with each other versus alone. And that is the reality, and that is why many times opposites do attract it. But because the opposites are there, that means we have to work through the differences. And how long have you and Jess been married for?
That's gonna be 22 years.
Wow.
You're 2 years more than us about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 20. Yeah. So we're in the second decade. We're heading into the second decade of our marriage. Our 20 year is actually the end of March. So
Really?
So it's
So we're almost to 20.
We're almost to 20, almost to that second decade. And it does keep getting better and better. But the first decade took a lot of getting to know and navigating through communication. I know for us, learning how to communicate, and we're still learning. I don't want to make it sound like we've arrived. We haven't, but we've got better tools now. Communication is huge. How about you guys? What have you experienced in communication, and where have the challenges been for you guys?
In 2020, that's what started it all right there. Is like, so before 2020, back to that deal or whatever, we were kind of living two separate lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really didn't participate in anything. She went on vacation. She did different things that I wasn't involved in. And I think that really and truly the communication thing is very, very, that is what has changed to everything.
Without the communication, you lose the connection.
Yes.
Yeah, it is essential. I have a question for you guys. And really the question comes from my curiosity with you guys in relation to us. I'll go ahead and tell you, with us, we're getting much better at it, but we have a tendency to talk, when we get together, we talk business a lot, sometimes more than, than we do personal and the relationship. So I was wondering how that goes for you guys. What do you think about that?
It's a big factor. I mean, we still do it. I mean,
so this is what happens, really and truly. Like, I'm all about the business. I'm like, I'm on it. I'm coming home. That's what I'm talking about and everything. And she's like, yeah, well, we did this with the pigs. We did that with the pigs. And I'm thinking like, okay. I'm all about business. You're all about the fun over there. You know what I'm saying? Let's try to get a happy medium going here,
He calls the pigs all fun, but you still got him some of that. It's not all fun.
But yeah, I would say that, like, for us,
yeah, it's
can you hear us still?
I think you might have cut out there in the middle of your sentence.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I agree that is absolutely a challenge that we've had to learn to navigate and put boundaries. So learning to set boundaries, learning communication skills. Communication skills too isn't just about the words we say, although they are very important. How we phrase them is huge. But communication also is the nonverbal stuff that we don't sometimes think about too much, but learning to read each other better on our nonverbal. For instance, when, in the beginning of our marriage, for sure, as we're getting to know each other, when he'd ask me, how are you? How was your day? And I'd say, fine, but it wasn't really fine. But he didn't know how to read my face or my body language to know to dig deeper. And then he'd walk away and that was it. And then I'd feel like, well, doesn't he care? Why isn't he not, asking me more? And for him, he's like, well, you said it was fine. So reading nonverbal cues is absolutely very important, along with the communication skills. And I do want to encourage those that are hearing this podcast and viewing it to absolutely make sure you get into learning how to communicate better, because I know for ourselves that our marriage really started to soar and transform when we showed up communicating better. And like I said, I don't want to make it sound like we've arrived, because it is a continual learning thing. So it sounds like that's what happened with you guys, that after 2020, you learned how to communicate better and express better to each other. It sounds like even express what you need.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as
Good.
far as, noticing what's on her face and stuff like that's another thing that's different now as well too. I was the one that was always asked, hey, everything all right? And I'd say, no, it's all good and everything, But once I started saying like, hey, as soon as she'd asked me, I'm like, yeah, this is what's wrong. This is what's going on today. When I opened up like that, it made it possible for me to see in her like, hey, when I come home and I'm doing that and I'm saying, oh, everything's fine and everything, well, it makes her feel a certain way. She's like, hey, do you not just want to talk to me and stuff like that? So I think being able to read that on her face and being able to know that like, hey, I need to go ahead and tell her today, like, hey, this is what's going on, I think that's made a big difference as well.
Yeah, that's great.
It's always good to have a different perspective, because he's looking at it a certain way because he has a certain type of demeanor about it. And I'm looking at it at a different way because I didn't experience it, but I'm hearing it. So I have a different demeanor. So like I might have a different type of suggestion for it,
Yeah. No, that's great that you have discovered that and are able to work through that. And now you understand a little bit better to communicate it. And I don't know, what would you say in the beginning, John, when you were saying that everything was good? Was there a reason that you would say it was good when it wasn't? What was going on there?
I guess that would be another thing that comes from the cycle of life. I didn't have nobody that, my old man come in and he had a bad day or whatever. My mother asked him what's wrong. I'm saying he wasn't going to say, oh, it's all good. It's all good. Go in there, sit in his chair and look at the TV with his frown on his face, So some of these things just end up being a cycle of life, and it's not wanting to bother her with whatever issue I was having that day. I didn't want to come home and she's having a great day and then my issue or whatever bother her. But I would say this, opening up to the communication part, it's easier to come home, say, hey, can I speak with you back here in the bedroom for a minute? You know what I'm saying? Go back there, say what you got to say, and then come back out. Mr. Be Happy's back.
That's great. That's great.
Well, you brought up a really great aspect of the relationship, and that is being open is so much better. Obviously, you can go to too much of an extreme. People that just talk and talk and talk and talk, and dominate the conversation. But the middle ground, is where each person is open with each other. And that's something that we've had to really work on ourselves, because definitely I've been more closed up, but she's been more closed up in different dynamics and ways, too. And we realize, if we're going to really seek to love the other person, we need to seek to understand them so that we know how to love them, and that takes, opening up and sharing with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's It's an interesting process, and it takes many times learning from other people. Like I know for us, we made a commitment in the beginning of our marriage to make sure that we got tools and strategies. So we had gone to marriage conferences, we had read books, we'd watch YouTubes, and we'd even have home groups where we'd have other couples come and we'd study, you know, a program together. And that had helped us over the years because it increased our knowledge, for one, but also having the small groups, it also kept us accountable to apply the things that we learned. Because as you know, John, you had mentioned, you know, we all met at a couples retreat in Florida back in November. And those types of events are always great because you get to, like, we got to know you guys. So I feel like you're a good accountability partner. Like, you know what we learned at that couples retreat, you know, the things that were given to us. And so, you know, but the power isn't in the knowledge. The power is in the doing. And I love what you said, John, that when you came back from that, you started to apply the things that you learned at that retreat, and it has been better for your family. So what would you say, was that your first couples retreat that you had gone to?
Yes.
Or had you been to other ones? Yes, it was. Okay. So what were your thoughts on that?
Yes. I would say, like, it really worked out good for me because Miss Be Happy said, hey, these are the things I want to do in the business, and the rest of the time I want to spend with my kids. You know, she had never really, all right, so let's say this. She might have mentioned those things or said those things before, but I was hearing and not listening, or listening and not hearing, however you want to say it, you know. But the couples retreat, and like now, like, we're going to go take a couple of days this weekend. Like, this is going to become a thing. Like, we hope to come to y'all's, you know. I would say what I learned most at the couples retreat is that, like, when we're together in a setting, and maybe other people there as well, but when we're together and more about each other, it makes a really big difference. And I got one even better too. So I use my phone, and I will text Jess things that I want to know. You know what I'm saying? I know she probably thought I was crazy the other day, but I texted her. I was like, what's your shoe size? You know, like, 22 years together, and I really didn't know. I had an idea of what her favorite color was, and I had an idea of what size shoe. But now that if I want to know something, I'll either ask her, or I'm better with the text messages because of the bad memory. That way I can go back and look, okay, well, this is what size shoes she wears, you know, and go buy her a nice pair of shoes if I want to.
He even knows how to make my coffee.
Wow. That's great, John. And this is a good tip, since tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So a lot of men are probably last minute trying to figure out what they're going to get their wives for tomorrow. And I have to say, that's great that you are better at asking, but I also think women need to be better at telling, like, give them hints. Like, for instance, now we've got Amazon. So maybe put some items into the wish list spot of Amazon, right? So that if he gets onto the Amazon account, maybe he can choose from those items, you know, or cut out, you know, because it used to be magazines used to sit all over. You can cut out magazine pictures or circle things on the magazines and give it to your husband. Because I know over the years, I would tell him when we would shop, I'd be like, hey, put this into your memory. I like this. And he'd be like, okay. But then by the time, you know, the holiday came around or birthday came around, he didn't remember what that was.
I couldn't remember the color. I can't remember. No, I can't remember those things.
So that's great, John, that that you're not afraid to ask. And yeah, it's you know, going to the events and going to the retreats are absolutely important. And in fact, I want to let the viewers know we are actually going to have a webinar coming up next week on communication, basically discovering your secret love language. And discovering your secret love language is basically learning about your verbal plus your non communication. And so it's going to be a masterclass. And so I'm going to put this on the screen, but I'd love to have, it's free. So I want, people to sign up and come on and join in on this webinar, because we think it's going to be very essential for couples to really learn these things, just as you guys have spoken, how that had changed your marriage, basically, when you learn to communicate, when you learn to ask, when you learn to express yourself. And so it's so important. And yes, we also have an upcoming retreat, so we'd love to absolutely offer that to anybody that would want to come. But absolutely, share out this link for those of you that are watching, and let's get people on this masterclass, because I think it's going to be really, really beneficial. I'd love to just share what we've learned over the years. What do you guys have going on right now? I know you've got the pigs and going to the auctions and the shows, right? And then you're building bardominiums like crazy, John. And it sounds like you're looking to expand as well. I know you've got all sorts of ideas going on.
So I am looking at expanding. We're making a bunch of transitions right now. So another thing, since I've been with Coach Burt, I've been working on systems and processes, trying to get the business to where, like, how do you hire somebody if you don't know exactly what they're going to do for you, right? Because I've done everything myself for all these times. So how do I hire a salesman? So I actually just talked to a guy the other day. He's fixing to graduate college or whatever, but he's went to college for, business management, construction management, and those type of things. He's a really smart guy. But I spoke with him, and he's going to help me get everything into one spot and everything, to where, like, I can pull away a little bit. And I think I figured out, that's another thing, doing the A to B. I figured out, like, what's highly enjoyable to me is going out here, being on these jobs, making my content, dealing with the crews, dealing with the customers and all that stuff. And everything else becomes a chore. So I'm actually in the process of hiring a person to do one thing. And then there are several other things that we're trying to do for Jess as well. Because like I said, when we was at the couples retreat, Jess said that she just wants to handle the finances and the contracts, and she really don't want to have to mess with anything else. So she is going to take and get everything together with the finances and the contract writing. And she's actually going to put a system together for that, to where she can teach somebody else how to do that system. So that's going to free her up with time. I'm doing the same thing on my end. I'm taking everything that I know how to do, and I'm putting it down to where I know a salesman needs to do this, this, and this. And we've kind of structured everything. I have to say, since meeting Coach Burt, a lot of things have changed in my life. Before then, I thought I would just work to the day I died. Now I see light in the tunnel. But I would say we're taking business to a whole new level. I would say this year our business will break 3 million. Next year, I'm going for 5.
Good for you.
That's great. And that's the benefit of coaching. If you would agree, I mean, we're benefiting big time from the coaching. We never had done that before this last year. So it sounds like you guys have started to do that too, or have you been doing that for a while?
No. July was my first time. I had never thought of it in my life until I did it. And it was one of those deals where we kind of got hooked up with this real estate team or franchise or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And we were, doing a little bit of buying and selling, real estate and stuff. And they said, hey, we're going to have this thing down in Cancun, Mexico. We're going to have this guy, Coach Michael Burt, there. Well, I want to know who I'm going to pay all this money to go see. I think a ticket was like $8,000, and anyway, I started researching and looking, and I started watching his videos and commenting and doing all this stuff. And then one day out of the blue, Brittany Hall calls me and says, hey, would you like, to do this, this, and this? And I was like, I don't know, what all does this entail, and this, that, and other. And before it was all over with, she sold me on a years of coaching and the couples retreat. That was my, sometimes you just go ahead and do something, ask for forgiveness later. That was my deal. I got to go home and say, Hey, I spent $20,000, but guess what? We're going on a couples retreat.
And it's with America's coach,
Right.
Coach Burt.
Well, it's kind of like what Coach Burt's story was when he spent $100,000, right, on tickets to Grant Cardone, and he had to figure out how he was going to tell his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's the true entrepreneurial mindset right there. John was like, I see that this is an investment, right? But you're like, but how am I going to explain it to my wife who might not see it just the same way?
Just a little bit. He got me into a lot of things. Like he would go and find a coaching program and be like, I want you to do this. And then I start doing it. It's like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Like you do it. Like I'm done with this, you know? So like when he did this Coach Burt thing, I'm like, you go have fun with that. Like it's your turn to do it.
You know, we're kind of touching on different people's money languages, which we don't have time to get into that tonight, but that's a good important topic to get to figure out too with couples.
Yeah, absolutely. The different money languages and how we view money, because finances is huge in a marriage. And so we got to understand, instead of misunderstanding, we do need to understand where it all comes from, because for some, you know, investing and spending and increasing the business
taking risks.
Right. Taking risks is a way to say, I love you, so I want to make sure our future is secure, and this is how I'm going to do it, versus someone who wants to, their love language is saving, you know, because having a savings means security. And so I'm trying to save this money so that we have security. So when you each understand that you're coming from different perspectives, okay, well, how do we meet in the middle, or how do we go about this then? We obviously have two very different viewpoints, but let's talk about this. And that's why communication is so important, because you're not going to know that if you don't talk about it. Because I know, as when we were newly married, we didn't freely talk about things. Things were not expressed very easily. At the 20-year mark, I think we're much better at expressing things. We don't hold back nearly as much. So
the problem with us, let's just confess it. the problem with us, probably the biggest one, was that both of us love to spend money.
Yeah, that's true. That is the problem. There was nobody else putting the brakes on. But hey, you know, it's kind of like that Sonny and Cher song, you know. They say we're young and we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to look forward to, because in my own personal opinion, I think the 20-year mark is that you take it to a whole new level after the 20-year mark with the communication and everything that we do now.
Yeah. Well, you're getting definitely excited about it. Yeah. I got so excited I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to say, I think it's much better now. I think that here, 22 years in and everything, I actually feel like I know Jess now, to where before, you know, the woman that, you know, took care of my children and put my plate of food on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. I definitely see that you guys are very in love, and absolutely, you know, it's great to see that, because, you know, there's couples who are married for a length of time, but you can see that they just tolerate each other. They're not necessarily in love with each other. But again, it takes intention. It doesn't come naturally. It honestly takes putting the effort in and getting to know one another on that deeper level. And when you discover that person, I have to say, I'm way more in love with him today than I was the day I married him. And I think he's much more attractive today than he was the day I married him, which is unusual too, because as you get older, that's not the case. But I think what that shows is that it's that inside, as you get to know the person, that attractiveness comes from the inside more than the outside.
True beauty is the inner beauty.
Yeah. So, and that's more lasting and more fulfilling than to just look at the physical aspects of when we're young. You know, when we're young, we don't necessarily look at all those things. We just look at the physical. Oh, he's cute. She's cute. Let's get together, you know?
I would say this over business as well. You know, like
Yeah.
now that we are doing a lot better as far as communication and knowing each other and everything, I think the business is benefiting from it as well. So I would say
Oh.
that to couples out there, you know, that think that like, hey, you know, we need to continue working on the business rather than ourselves. I think if you spin that around and work just as hard, if not harder, on your relationship with each other, it's going to benefit the business in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'd say both of them. The more you invest and build the relationship, it's the same thing. Either both of them, as you build them, they complement and build up the other one.
No,
Yes.
I absolutely agree, John. That is probably the magic that happens is when you build on each other's relationship. Because marriage, let's just face it, life doesn't mean much if you reach the top and you end up reaching it alone and you don't have your partner to be there to share it with. And I do think that when you when you understand what's going on and you harness those challenges versus letting them be a wedge in your relationship, you absolutely can go further, farther, faster, and higher. And so, agreed, John. I think the investment in marriages is so important. It's kind of like, you know, they say that investing in your prevention of your health costs less than letting your health go, because you're going to end up paying a lot more later on, you know, trying to fix your health if you don't take care of yourself. And it's the same thing with marriage. If you're not willing to invest in your marriage to make it healthy, so that means going to couples retreats, that means, you know, hiring a coach, that means going to conferences and putting in that effort, it costs way less to do that than it does getting a divorce, because a divorce is not only painful emotionally, but it is costly financially, like a lot. And divorce lawyers make a lot of money, you know, and so the investment is so worth it. John and Jessica, really appreciate you. And I love that you always use Mr. Be Happy and Mrs. Be Happy, and you're just at Be Happy. And that's your company's name too. I absolutely love that, because it gives it brings a smile to my face every time I see a post that says Mr. Be Happy is here, or Mr. Be Happy says, you know, this, and Mrs. Be Happy. And I'm like, it just puts a smile on. And I'm so glad that you do that, because I'm sure it makes you guys smile too, you know. But I just wanted you to know that I love that for sure. Any last final things you want to leave our audience here as we wrap up?
I just want to leave with work just as hard on your marriage as you do your business.
Amen.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and your life. We really appreciate you being vulnerable and open, because somebody needed to hear this tonight, and it's going to help someone out there. And even if it only helps one couple, it is so worth it, because I think that, you know, marriages, happy marriages can make such a big difference in the world. So, you know, if we can rescue one marriage at a time, then we absolutely want to do that. So thank you so much, you guys. Really appreciate your friendship. Really appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, we sure
Thank
do.
you.
All right. We'll see you later.
Okay.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys, for joining us this evening. Please be sure to share this out. What a great nuggets of truth and wisdom, and definitely will help your marriage or your married friends' marriages. So please absolutely be sure to share us out and reach us. Like us on Facebook. We are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we'd love to connect with you, and sign up for the masterclass. Spread the word. We'd love to help you with your communication skills so that you can transform your marriage.
It's going to be insightful and incredible.
Absolutely. And so we will see you very soon. And we do have a retreat coming up, and I'll put that in the comments too, so that if you want to take a look at the info on that, that'd be absolutely something for you to check out, because that's going to be transformational.
I'd love for you to join us, and there's not a lot of room left.
Exactly. So, all right, guys, Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.